Okay, so my name is Joe Jellick. I'm the principal at Lodi High School, and I'm so glad that we can have a few people come tonight. We are recording it. Mr. Marshall, Mr. Marshall is recording it, so we are going to be able to put this out on the LCAT website or the district website, so parents can view this. Again, I'm Joe, principal at Lodi High School. I'll be part of this presentation. We also have Nina Gregerson, who is standing over there. She will be doing a lot of the presenting. We have Brian Bilsey. Some of you know Brian from LCAT. And then we have Maddie McMorris, who is a part of our fact group, so she's going to be a part of the presentation as well. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with Nina. This is information about a concern that I've had ever since I came up to the high school in 2016. And I know it was an issue even before 2016, but playing the role as associate principal and noticing this was starting to become even a bigger issue at the high school. This is something that we need to get as much information out to parents as we can. So I'm going to give the remote to Nina, and if you just click the arrow, you can go from one slide to the next.
Fantastic.
There you go.
Hey everyone. Like Joe said, my name is Nina Gregerson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the LCAT vice chair. That's what brings me here today. I'm also a health education coordinator at Public Health Madison and Dane County, and actually worked really closely with LCAT for many years prior to 2020 on this very topic. So that's what kind of brings me here today. So just kind of an overview of what we're going to be covering today. I'll be covering what parents need to know about these products. Brian's going to go into some of the LCAT efforts, and obviously we're going to cover some FACT youth efforts as well here at the high school and middle school. Joe's going to go over some local data and what's happening here at the high school in particular, and then we'll have some time for question and answer discussion if you don't have it. So what parents need to know. So you might be asking yourself, what are e-cigs? So e-cigs are these electronic devices that pretty much the intent is to consume nicotine in aerosol. So they come in a variety of shapes and sizes, as we'll show you in a couple slides from now. But you can get e-cigs in tanks and mods, so that's kind of what they look like here. You have rechargeable e-cigarettes, like a Juul, you might have heard that term before, or Sorin. And then this is a more traditional disposable e-cigarette. Pretty much any model type that you have, they all have these basic components. So they have a battery that powers the device, an atomizer that heats the liquid, which is in this cartridge here. And that liquid can be a mixture of nicotine, flavoring, and other chemicals. And then it does have a mouthpiece where the user inhales, takes a hit, inhales it into the lungs, and then exhales it. So as you can see here, it doesn't matter what you call them, they're all e-cigarettes or vaping devices. So you can see here they can come in all shapes and sizes and colors. So we have one that looks like your grandfather's pipe, one that looks like a cigar. This is more of like a mod or a mod style. You have your traditional vape pens that are refillable and rechargeable. These products here are disposable, so they can be called vape pens, e-hookahs, cig-alikes. Obviously now we're getting into like the more common and more appealing products such as Juul, Puff Bar, Sorins, and Smoke. Vaping products can also be hidden in plain sight. So, and I wish I would have remembered to bring some of these from my office, but you can definitely buy a vaping product that comes in as a sweatshirt. So you can see here the cord here is an actual vaping device. And you can buy backpacks that are equipped with vaping devices. So the gal here in the middle has both the sweatshirt and the book bag. And you can buy this online, easy peasy. You don't have to be of a certain age, because it doesn't come with the liquid nicotine, it's just the device. These are also types of e-cigarettes. So you can get an e-cigarette device that is a phone case. You can get one that looks like a key fob, a tube of lipstick. This looks like a necklace, right? If I would see this from afar, I think it would be a cool little necklace. Nope, it's a vaping product. A watch. We also have one of these in our office. It looks just like an Apple Watch. And an inhaler. Again, I did a simple Google search of hidden and play-inside vaping products, and all these came up for purchase. Again, if it doesn't have liquid inside of it, if it doesn't have the liquid nicotine, you can purchase these, no problem, no age verification whatsoever. It's also important to point out that the industry knows what it's doing, and it did it pretty well up until 2020-ish. And they're still doing a really good job. It's just a little bit more discreet now. But e-cigs and vaping is all over social media. You can see here there's dozens upon dozens of videos, if not hundreds and thousands, on TikTok. Celebrities show themselves doing it on Snapchat. There's multitudes of memes out there. And then obviously utilizing social media like Instagram and YouTube to promote their products. Juul actually got in trouble for doing this several years ago, and they had to scale back, but they still do it. We know that kiddos are on social media and on their devices a lot, so the more that they're exposed to this, the more it's normalized. So another way it's appealing to young people is the flavors. A study that came out in 2016, it's a bit old, but it can translate to today's world. When surveyed, high school students who vaped said that they wouldn't vape, or 9 out of 10 high school students who vaped said that they wouldn't vape if it didn't come in these appealing flavors, right? So if we didn't have cotton candy and Fruit Loop and those type of flavors, young people wouldn't be as appealed by these products. So you can see here that Juul pods themselves have been banned in flavors. So you can't purchase those anymore. However, all of these products are still available. So we have some of the products over here on the table. You can come up and look afterwards. But as long as the product is considered refillable, where you have to put the e-juice in the device itself, then it can be sold as a flavor. And then some of these other pod devices are also legal today. And this is an interesting thing I found. Kind of been out of the tobacco and nicotine prevention world for a few years now. However, this is something that kind of caught my attention. That vaping industry was actually offering academic scholarships to high school students if they would write about the benefits of vaping. And it's pretty concerning that an industry would be doing this and appealing to young people. And I want to point out that this article came out in 2020. However, this was technically after the federal government raised the age to 21, 18 to 21. So the fact that they were still doing this and having young folks who aren't legally supposed to be using their products write about their products is even more concerning and something to keep in mind and know about. again, I can't emphasize this enough, nicotine is one of the most addictive drugs that exist today. And I just like to share this image because it's not just the brain and the lungs that are impacted by nicotine. Nicotine also can have a negative impact on circulation in your heart. Definitely if someone is pregnant, to the fetus, that can have an issue. Your GI system, it really can affect your whole body and definitely can impact a young person's body that is developing. So I'm going to pass it over to Brian. He's going to share some local efforts here, and then we're going to have Matt come up.
Thank you, Nina.
Yeah.
And I want to point out too, Nina used to actually work with the FACT students back in 2019 at Lodi School. So
Years, yeah.
when I started a couple years ago with the FACT program, I kind of leaned on Nina a little bit and just to help me out. So good evening. I'm Brian Bilsey. I'm the program coordinator with the Lodi Community Action Team. I wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about some of LCAT's efforts with this issue that we're having. And just to point out, we're not just having it in this city, in this town. It's in Columbia County. It's in the state of Wisconsin. Vaping's everywhere. So what are we doing? What is LCAT doing as far as staff training and community education? I'll give you a prime example. When we get information, like if it's from the state or from the county, we pass this on to the building principals and to the teachers and staff and to the students. And a prime example of this would be just a couple of days ago, I received information about programs on how kids can quit. And you actually picked it up and you walked in tonight. It's the Commercial Tobacco and Nicotine Youth Cessation Programs. So I got this out to the building principals, I got it out to the guidance counselors, and then I got it out to the school nurses. Well, Janelle, the school nurse here at the high school, had an awesome idea. She took this flyer to Mr. Jellick and said, Mr. Jellick, what do you think if we would put this up in the bathrooms and we could put it up by the water fountains? So students that need the help, that haven't been caught, that haven't had any kind of intervention, maybe they'll take a picture of it and they can use it for later. So if you go and use the restrooms tonight here at the school, you'll find this flyer in our bathrooms. So another way of getting this information out to the staff and then essentially to the students. So it takes a lot of hard work and it's great. We have community resource hubs throughout the community. So we have a resource hub at Retail Lodi. We have one at the police department. We have some information at the library. So we try to get our information out to the community too, in general. Last fall, the school board policy committee took a look at the tobacco policy, and they made some changes. And these changes are for the better. And you have a copy of the policy. I'm not going to go through the whole policy because there's a lot to it. But the thing I wanted to point out is now for first offense, if a student is caught with a vaping device or tobacco at this school for your first offense, instead of getting an out-of-school suspension, because that's historically what it was, you get an out-of-school suspension. Now it's a one-day in-school suspension, and you have to take the in-depth program. And I'll talk about the in-depth program here just momentarily. It's a program that I teach. So I think it's great because when a student is out of school, they're not learning that day as much. They're not here. They're maybe in that environment to do what they were in trouble in the first place with. So I think it's great. And I spoke at a state conference this past winter about this policy, and there's a lot of people all over the state going, "Wow, Lodi is cutting edge. We didn't even think about adding this. It's just we always just hammer the kids, and they're held accountable. They're definitely held accountable, but there's some education here too, and that's really important." So the in-depth program. In-depth stands for, and it's a mouthful up there, it stands for an intervention for nicotine dependence, education, prevention, tobacco, and health. It's an evidence-based program that was created by the American Lung Association. It's 4 hours long. about 4 hours. It's 4 45-minute sessions that students work with me. And what do we talk about? Again, there's a flyer that I handed out. You can kind of look it over. But what we talk about is nicotine, and Nina mentioned how powerful nicotine is. We talk about the reason why they vape. It's very interesting. I have a psychology minor, and it's interesting to figure out why some of these students tell me why they vape. And then, you know, we try to get them headed in the right direction of wanting to quit. This is not a cessation program, and it is not, it's mandatory. It's not voluntary. We'll go over some cessation programs here in just a bit. But, so a lot of times kids will tell, so in depth you have to take like a little survey at the beginning. So they have like national survey, and a lot of kids tell the folks at in depth, well, I was curious, so that's why I started vaping. You know, my friends do it, my family do it. So here's your first quiz of the night, okay? Why do you suppose, and I've worked with several students in this program at Lodi Middle School, Lodi High School, and one at the elementary school. Why do you suppose kids in Lodi pick up the vape pen, they pick up the cigarettes? Any ideas? And it's not peer pressure. It's not because their friends are doing it.
Social media?
No, well, I mean, that is a good one, but no.
Anxiety.
Boy, yeah, stress. That's the first thing out of their mouth. I am so stressed, Mr. Delsey. And you know, if you think about it, it's a stressful world we live in. As adults, we're stressed. Kids are stressed. So this is the common theme, the common story that these students are telling me. Yep, I was told that vaping would calm me, would relax me. Well, vaping releases dopamine, so yeah, it's the happy drug. It makes you feel good. But then, just like other drugs, you need more and more nicotine as you go along to feel good, to feel relaxed. So then they get in this vicious cycle, and I've had more than one student tell me this. They say, you know, I get hooked. I am addicted to vaping, and I cannot get through the school day without vaping. So, Mr. Delsey, I'm here because I got caught. So I'm addicted, so I can't get through the school day, so here I am in the bathroom or some other place vaping, and I know it's wrong. And I know if I get caught, I'm going to be in more trouble. So that stresses me out. So it's this vicious cycle that these kids are kind of going through. So I talk a lot about how they can relieve stress. You know, one kid told me, I said, well, what's stressing you out? Well, math class. I have a terrible time in math class. I said, okay, well, have you talked to the math teacher about getting extra help? Oh, gee whiz, I guess I never really thought about that. You know, but I try to give them tools, different ideas, you know, of what they can do to relieve some of the stress besides vaping and stuff like that. So, but it's kind of fascinating to me that that's really, you know, the main theme is stress. So, and I think that would be the cause for alcohol and drug use too. A lot of kids are stressed. Speaking of cessation programs, so at the end of the in-depth program, like I said, it's not a cessation program, but at the very end, I tell them, if you are ready to quit, I'm here to give you these options, these choices. These are the ones that I know of that are evidence-based, that work. So the first one there in the green box is not on tobacco. It's an in-person class. It's 10 sessions long. It's about 10 hours long. I am certified to teach this program. I have never had a student take me up on it, though. It's voluntary. It's not mandatory. They don't want to sit through 10 hours or listen to me blab. So, luckily, just recently, within this last year, the American Lung Association, which has the NOT program too, came up with Not For Me. And that's a web-based program. So kids can actually get on the computer. It's 8 self-paced sessions. So they don't have to listen to me, and they can go through the class themselves. It's a fairly new program. I don't know the success rate on that one. But again, it's an option. The other one in the blue box there is Live Vape Free, where kids like to text and they can text, and they can actually talk to a live quick coach, so someone who can help them or at least get them in the right direction. And then the old-fashioned way, Wisconsin Tobacco Quit Line, which I've been hearing a lot of advertisements on TV lately for that. But you can call, you can talk to somebody too about how you can get help to quit. Obviously, this is not the be all end all. There's other options. Going to see a family physician. The guidance counselors have this tool. I'm sure they have other tools that I don't have. But again, it's just more help for the toolbox. It's just more options. And what I like about this is it kind of gives you a realm of everything. I mean, if you are comfortable letting me talk to you about it, great. If not, maybe you're more comfortable being on the computer by yourself. Maybe you're more comfortable texting to somebody. Maybe the old telephone is the way to go. So I think a lot of options for different kids and their different personalities. As part of our tobacco grants that we have, we participate in the Wisconsin Wins program, and essentially what that is that's tobacco compliance checks. So we do tobacco compliance checks with businesses that have a tobacco license that sell tobacco products. We do these in Lodi, in the surrounding area, and we do them throughout Columbia County. I always like to say Lodi is not an island. Our kids travel, the kids are out and about, so we want to make sure all the kids in Columbia County, and we want to make sure all of the businesses in Columbia County are not selling tobacco to our kids. I'm happy to announce that last year I did this program and I checked about 50 businesses throughout Columbia County. We had one business fail, one out of approximately 50. We had 100% pass rate in the Lodi, in the city and in the Lodi School District, those businesses. So I applaud them for that. But we'll be out again this late spring, early summer here, fairly soon. So actually, before I have Maddie, I wanted to say one other thing about the. So Anita mentioned it's 21 now to purchase tobacco products. That's the federal law. But what gets really confusing is the state law in Wisconsin is still 18. So when I have students go in to check these businesses, I am using 16 and 17-year-old students because the state law is still 18. Many of the businesses, though, that we are checking are following the 21 law, which is really refreshing and it's great. And let me tell you, if a 16-year-old, I don't care what the 16-year-old looks like, they don't look 21. There's no way. So some of my kids have been laughed out of the store, which is a good thing. Again, we want compliance, and a lot of businesses have scanning devices so they can scan the IDs, and it comes right up on the computer. You're not 21, or you're not 18. You can't wait. We can't sell to you. We try to push education. I send out flyers to these businesses. They know we're coming. They know we send out information on how to check IDs properly. We want them to pass. We want them to succeed. So by having them succeed, we're succeeding in keeping our kids healthy and safe. So, okay, I will have my FACT student, Miss Mandy McMorris, come up, and she will talk a little bit about the FACT group. And it's Mandy.
Hi, so like you said, I'm Maggie McMorris. I'm the secretary of Lodi's FACT Committee, and I'm on the state board. What's FACT? So we are a youth-driven movement. We are Wisconsin teens spreading the truth about tobacco and nicotine. We've been doing this since 2001. Lodi's FACT group started about 8 years ago in 2015. We have nearly 30 groups all across Wisconsin with members ranging from 7th and 12th grade. We have been taking action against death and disease caused by tobacco and the way it impacts our lives. So some things we have done are peer-to-peer educations called baptisms. And these pictures is our first activism we did this year on Halloween to promote that tobacco is a trick, not treat. It's a fun way to celebrate the holiday while still being our name and our message out there. Recently, we just met with our mayor and discussed some of the policies on our park. The rules aren't clear about no vaping or smoking, so we met with her to see if we could change that, because they're just recently changing the rules for that. Earlier this year, I wrote an article to our Lodi newspaper about what FACT is, what we do, and told them our message. This was a great way to get our name out and was very much a success. And lastly, like I said earlier, I'm on the state board. This has been a great educational experience for me, and I love the opportunity to do this. In this picture, we see one of the meetings we have. We have a month-to-month meeting, once a month for 6 months.
And how many students are on the fact board for the state manual?
We have 7 students across all of Wisconsin.
And how many from Lodi?
2,
Awesome.
including me and another sophomore, Maddie Berry.
So lots of representation from the ladies.
Yes.
And it was quite a process. It wasn't just raise your hand and you can be on. I mean, there was an application process, there was letter of recommendation. So very proud of Maddie and Maddie. They've done a great job of representing Lodi.
And I think I'm going to be next, so kind of as a segue, their goal is to get that information out to kids. I mean, it's important to get it out to adults and parents, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school students. But their goal is to do that. So trying to amp that up next year and get as much information out to our students as we possibly can. Some of the things that Nina brought up about the dangers of vaping, there are students that just don't get that. They don't understand the number of chemicals that are in vaping. They don't understand, in some cases, don't understand how addictive it is. So FACT is really important. We'd like to think that they listen to adults. Probably not as much as they do with their peers as far as some of these things. So it's really important that we build that group more and we get as much information out to our kids as we can. Let's get Maddie. Like I said, I'm Joe Jelinek. I'm the principal at Lodi High School. I'm going to talk a little bit about local data and some of the things that the high school has done. Jason, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but if you feel like you need to add anything, feel free. And Derek, you're on the ground at the middle school too, kind of dealing with this as well. So if there's anything you can think of, feel free to add. So a lot of our local data actually comes from what is called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. We did have a data summit back in October 26th in 2022, so this past fall, where a lot of community leaders, school leaders, parents got together to talk about this survey. And the survey isn't just about tobacco use, it asks lots of questions. It asks about drugs and alcohol, asks about suicide, asks about things like bullying, things like that. Asks lots of questions, very thorough. So there are a few questions that are related specifically to vaping that I'll give you some of the statistics that we got from this survey so you can see what that looks like. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what the consequences look like here at the high school. Brian alluded to that a little bit with our policy. And unfortunately, when I started, I mentioned I started here in 2016, and I knew a little bit about vaping, but vape devices probably before that were easily recognizable, very easy to see. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it was very difficult to find anybody vaping because not many kids use them, and you'll see that in the statistics. But it was also very difficult for kids to hide them. If we think about our time, and nicotine came from cigarettes, nearly impossible to hide smoking. I can think of my high school, there was a place across the street that kids would leave school grounds, stand around a tree, and smoke cigarettes. And you could see them out there, and it was allowed. Okay, that's where they were getting their nicotine. Very difficult to hide it in schools. I knew some kids in high school that used to chew tobacco, and they could hide that a little bit easier than obviously smoking. But I can also remember my dad was a teacher and going to his middle school, and the lounge door would open up and there'd be billows of smoke coming out of the lounge. Because it was just more socially acceptable. It was in all kinds of places people were smoking, and thank goodness they've taken that out of a lot of places so people can't just smoke anywhere. So it's been very difficult. The first time I ever saw a Juul pen, it looks like a flash drive. I didn't even know, I thought it was a flash drive. It was very easy to use, very easy to hide. So one of the things that administration has to deal with is, first of all, being able to find it if they have it. because and it's just so easily used, and obviously they're using it in places where there are not cameras, and that's in bathrooms, and especially in stalls in bathrooms. So I'll first go over some of the youth risk behavior data. So high school efforts, and this is the data. So this is one of the questions. Reported that they used an electric vapor device during the past 30 days. So in 2017, 2.3% of high schoolers reported that they had used in the past 30 days. In 2019, it was 14%. So a little bit more than 1 out of 10. And in 2021, 16%. So you can see, obviously, it's been getting higher. And then 20% were female, 13% were male. And at that time in 2021, the 11th graders made up 29%. So 29% of them had vaped in the last 30 days, according to this survey. Another question that was asked about vaping: have you ever used an electronic vapor product? So have you ever just used it once? 2017, 17.3%, 2019, 38%. It did go down. So in 2019, it kind of peaked, and then in 2021, 29%, 31% female, 26% male, and again, I don't know what it is about 11th graders, but 11th graders, highest percentage of 41%. So close to half of 11th graders had at least tried it once. Okay? You can see how it is appealing to high schoolers because it doesn't really smell, it doesn't make you smell, it doesn't make you smell like smoke. It's really, really easy to use. And it seems as though they can get their hands on it pretty easily. So that's some data based on the YRBS survey, going back to 2017 all the way through 2021. Percent of tobacco users whose first tobacco product was Juul or e-cigarettes, 85%. So it really started to take off when Juul came around. There was a lawsuit, and I think Nina mentioned it. There was a lawsuit that actually our school district was involved in, where they had to pull back on promoting or marketing this towards kids. And when you get a chance, so at the end of this presentation, I do want you to come up here and take a look at some of these things. Feel free to pick them up. This side right here is what we've confiscated probably in the last 3 months at Lodi High School. Normally the police will come and pick up all we had a box full. That was probably a box of about 2 years of devices, and then the police came and got them. So I just brought those in as some of the devices that kids are using. 94% females, 73% males. Would not try, and I think you mentioned this, Nina, would not try e-cigarette products if not flavored. So according to the data from our high schoolers, 57% wouldn't try it if it wasn't flavored. Because I don't think they're trying to get that great tasting smoke taste that the cigarettes did back, or any cigarette. They want the flavored taste. And if it wasn't flavored, they wouldn't do it. Which is very frustrating, I'm sure, to a lot of adults. YRBS segregation is also given to middle schoolers. So 8th graders, have you ever used an electronic vapor product? 9%. And then would not try e-cigarette products if not flavored, 79%. Okay. According to YRBS. So we're so happy that we were able to start talking to Brian a little bit about educating our kids. And yes, at this point, we haven't had any takers as far as taking some of these classes just because they want to quit. All of them up to this point have gotten caught. And once they're caught, it's almost a little bit of a relief, I feel like, when I talk to these teenagers. Like, all right, here's the next step. Yes, there's going to be a consequence. If you're involved in sport, there's going to be a code violation. We'll get through that. But we know, and Jason has been a part of these conversations as well, we know it's highly addictive. We know it's going to be really difficult to quit now that you're caught. At least not use it here at school. It's going to be really difficult because nicotine is very addictive. So we're going to help you with that. We're going to figure out ways to get around that. We're going to fill the void that the reason why you're using e-cigarettes is something else. We can figure it out. So that has to do a lot with the conversation. As far as consequences, just so you know, this is what is in policy. First offense, 1 day in-school suspension. We have changed that from a few years ago from out-of-school suspension. And then completion of the in-depth program. And we do have a code that all our athletes and other kids that are involved in some of our co-curriculars, 33% with season suspension, depending on the sport. Second offense, 1 to 2 day out of school suspension and a referral to law enforcement. So one of the things that, if we do find this in a kid the first time, we call the parents, we keep it, we don't give it back to the parents, we keep it, we don't get the police involved. Second time, we do call law enforcement, and we tell them after the fact that if it does happen again, a police officer will be here, you will be ticketed. Major code violation, 33% of the season. And then third offense, 2 to 3 day out of school suspension, referral to law enforcement, and readmittance, meaning a 1-year suspension from sports. To be honest, this is what they hate the most, and that is the code violation, because they want to be able to participate. And fourth offense, 5 day out of school suspension, pre-expulsion meeting, and referral to law enforcement. If it is not nicotine in one of these, and it's THC, which is a whole other level of issues, it goes right to a pre-expulsion meeting. And a pre-expulsion meeting leads to a contract that a student will have to follow for about a year. And a lot of it has to do with educating them and getting them better. And again, Jason can attest to this, I'm sure Derek can too. I feel like it's almost a relief, you're caught. Now we're gonna get some improvement, we're gonna be able to quit. And talking to some of these kids when they finally admit that they've done it, and we found that they faked, many of them do want to get better. Many of them want to quit. They're exactly what Brian's talking about, and they are stressed out, there's anxiety. That's the reason why they tell us most of the time that they're doing it. It's not because somebody else is doing it. They might, the first time, try it because their friend is trying it, and then they get a little addicted, and then when they feel a little anxiety and they do it, and they feel a little bit better temporarily, then they continue to do it, and then they're hooked.
And I think one of the things that's supported by that, excuse me, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, there's a question in there that talks about the percentage of students who would quit if they could or want to quit. And that percentage is really high. So yeah, we have a high percentage of students who have used at some point or are currently within the last 30 days using. But I think that there are a lot of students out there who want to quit. They just don't know what tools exist. And I think that's where Joe's coming from, is sometimes, right, it's really intimidating to walk up to a parent sometimes and say, hey, I have this issue that you probably were totally unaware of, and open up that conversation. In the course of getting caught, right, Joe and I are having that conversation with a parent, and now the cat's sort of out of the bag. And now we get this team of support around that student to try to figure out the underlying issue and try to make some progress moving forward.
And many of our kids that have been caught, at least here at the high school, have 0 other discipline. So it's not like these are the bad kids or whatever you want to call them. These are kids that are addicted and have no other problems in classes, for the most part.
Does law enforcement give an underage ticket, or what sort of, like,
Yes.
can you get one for smoking it,
Yeah.
at 21?
Yes.
You can, say,
Yeah, you can be ticketed.
Yeah, they are typically ticketed for possession of a
Stuff.
vape device. Yeah.
oh,
If it's a THC offense,
Yeah,
there
that's
are some other things that but typically it's possession.
My question with that one was, are we not required as a school to contact law enforcement on the first offense?
Well, parents are contacted. Parents would like to contact law enforcement, they can. There are certain
The school's not required to, since it's not
It's
illegal.
not, yeah. We haven't, and that's in policy.
I just didn't know if that could, if the school could be liable for something, is it a mandatory reporting kind of issue?
We're not required, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And again, we want to allow them to fix the problem, allow the parents to be
I agree.
involved and fix the problem.
I agree, I just want to make sure the school wasn't gonna get in trouble for not reporting it.
Yeah, he's the one that can tell us that we're not.
You know.
Okay, other things. One of the things that we have dabbled in a little bit and tried a little bit, and we've actually done this at the middle school as well, is I reached out to Capital Conference principals and asked them about vape detectors in their bathrooms. And when one of the biggest problems with, I think, the pandemic, besides a lot of the problems with the pandemic, is that there are a lot of kids home. And when they were home during virtual learning, it was very easy to vape. Parents were at work, especially high school students and some middle school students. Parents aren't home, they can easily do it, nobody's gonna decide, and then they get addicted, and then suddenly they gotta be back in school and not know what to do. Okay? So I reached out to them kind of near the end of when we had virtual learning, and many of our Capital Conference schools started to put vape detectors in their bathrooms. I was just at a principals conference in January, I think it was, and some of the principals were talking about this, and it changed everything as far as the use, as far as the number of kids that were trying to use in bathrooms and trying to use in school. The number of discipline issues they had with vape pens went way down. So we have actually piloted a couple different vape detectors in our school. One of them is Halo and one of them is Ricotta, just to see what that's like. Well, I can tell you the first Ricotta device we had down the first day, and I felt like we weren't prepared for this. You know, in our mind we're thinking, this is an issue, but it's not that big of an issue. The first day, I had 3 hits in one bathroom in 2 hours. Just boom, boom, boom. And of course, we dealt with it. Jason did a really good job, like writing out the protocol and how we deal with this and what does it look like and how are we going to handle it. But we knew right away this is going to take a lot of our time, and we have to be really dedicated to it. And it does. There's lots of other things that happen in school. So that happened. We also use Halo because right now we're going to be working with the school board and trying to figure out if they do want to put these in our bathrooms and what the cost is going to be. So we tried Halo as well. And yes, that has led to some kids getting caught. And for the most part, they've started to realize where the detectors were. So I'm sure it's happening in other bathrooms because there are kids that talk about it, and that it is happening in other bathrooms. But this was not just happening during the school day. So it gives a readout, and actually, one of the worst things I did is I put an app on my phone so I could see whenever it was happening. So at 7 o'clock at night on a Saturday, it was happening in the bathroom. During a youth basketball tournament, parents are going in and using vape pens, and it's going on. So I was getting all these notices, and I'm like, and I was almost relieved when it was happening outside of school hours because I'm really, okay, it's not one of our kids. But it was an adult or something. It was happening. It was happening during even our basketball games or wrestling events in the evening, and we can see video of outside of bathrooms. It's usually an adult. It was always an adult. Because they're addicted as well, and it's really easy to hide and really easy to do it. You go into a stall, you take one puff, you get your nicotine hit, and you're done. So we are looking to put these into our bathrooms. We're going to highly recommend it. I know it's going to deter some kids from vaping in school. But more than anything, I think we've had some really good conversations with kids about what can we do to help you? What is the next step? Because we want you to stop vaping for lots of different reasons. Some of the things that Nina talked about, some of the things that Brian talked about, some of the things that Manny talked about. So that's kind of the next step as far as prevention, but education is the most important thing. And we'll continue to do that with our partnership with LCAT. Anything else to add? Guys, good. Anything else to add? Are there any other questions that maybe we can answer?
I don't have a question, but I'll start with a comment, I guess. And first, just thank you guys for doing this and for the time and effort. And I certainly wish there were more people here from our community, but that didn't happen, which is fine. Looking at those statistics, and we talk about what we're going to do here at the high school and put the detectors in, but it really seems to me like we need to get back to the grassroots. Like when I was in school many moons ago, just say no to drugs. McGruff the crime dog came, right? The little pup, and he sat and he had a cigarette hanging out his mouth, and this is what's going to happen if you do this. And I mean, it's ingrained in my head. Just say no to drugs, and it didn't work for everybody, right? And the fact that 79% of the 8th graders in 2021 said that they would not try it. To me, it's like, okay, so have they had more education than those 11th graders, even just those 3 or 4 years of this is bad for you, don't do it, this is what's going to happen. I mean, literally, it was kind of a brainwash when I was growing up. These drugs are, they're horrible. Don't smoke. You're going to look like a wrinkled granny when you're 25 years old. And I would really like to see more education at the elementary school, starting in 3rd grade. I really think that's where, for our community, like almost too, if like we could have this like Lodi slogan of, I don't know, what was it, like, live the good life, vape free. Like that's what we do here. Our kids know it. they're proud that they're not vaping, they know the consequences of it when they're in 3rd grade. I just think educating our younger students, and I know like right now it's a big deal with our adult or older students, and I mean, but I think to change and to see those trends continuing to change, we need to get this in at the elementary level, starting day 3rd grade.
Yeah,
And it could be in 2nd grade, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that a lot of that is happening now, that's my impression, I don't know that for a fact, but that would be where I would love to see more happening right now.
No, I would 100% agree. It needs to start at an earlier age, as much education and information as we can get out to kids, and whether that's part of our curriculum. In some cases it is, at the high school, teaching about it a little bit, but absolutely. One of the things that's hard is that industry, you're in a battle against the industry. They're going to get smarter, they're going to figure out other ways that they can convince kids to
But
get
what's the
started.
next thing that's gonna come out?
Right, and again, e-cigarettes started because it was an alternative to smoking. It was going to get people to stop smoking. But obviously, based on all the pictures that you saw, those aren't for adults.
Oh.
I don't know about you, but if I was going to start smoking, I wouldn't start with cotton candy. You know what I mean? It's just, it's so obvious that it's marketed to kids.
And the social media too, that when you're, because like TikTok and all that stuff, it's like, oh, you're stressed, you should, you know.
Yeah, taking coping strategies,
Yeah.
you know, I know, I mean, that rolls into the mental health curriculum or whatever, like, what are good coping strategies?
But
in
some
life?
of the kids that are on that plan where they've been caught a couple times, we do set them up with our counselor to talk about the coping strategy.
Yeah.
How can you do stress as opposed to picking up a vape pen?
And I think one of the other challenges is, right, there's a whole industry that's aimed at marketing this towards kids. There's also a whole industry that's marketed towards concealing this from adults who want to find it. So one of the things that, and I should have sent a picture so that we could include it. I got an email from a parent this week that it's a highlighter, looks just like a highlighter, and the bottom is a plug. And then you take off the cap of the highlighter and it's a vape device, right? Like, it's the cards are stacked against us from being able to monitor those things. And right, it's tough because you want to give middle school and high school age students some space and some privacy. It feels really uncomfortable to search down to I'm sitting here with a highlighter and I'm opening it up to double check that this is really a highlighter, but that's sort of the reality of where we've gotten. But I totally agree, right? The education that we're trying to do at the high school is too little too late. We're so far behind the 8 ball in trying to fix that problem, and I think for parents too, right? We need to.
No fault to you, I mean, no fault
Yeah,
to
right.
anyone.
It's the hand that we've been dealt, and this has progressed and blossomed so rapidly.
Well, I think the biggest thing we can do is try to prevent it, specifically, like, we can control our buildings, and I think the vape detectors would go a long ways, because I can tell you at the middle school, if you vaped out, well, number one, at the middle school, don't tell on each other, so it's a little bit different than the high school, but if we can, prevent it from the middle school and then get into high school without it, I think that's a big step. I would say we have not had issues at the middle school this year. I haven't found anybody, and like I said, people would, in general, I think, tell. That's again the way they roll, which I think is a really positive sign. And then from our youth risk behavior survey, it seemed like there was much less interest or doing it. And then you met with some of our life skills classes, and they seemed to indicate that those surveys were accurate, that it wasn't as prevalent. So it's a good sign.
And I think the other piece that we're doing as a district, right, is we're trying to address some of the underlying issues that are causing kids to vape in the first place, right? We have social emotional learning curriculum and work that's being done across the district, from our youngest kids to our high schoolers, where they're working on, building relationships with each other, how to cope with things like that, and having those conversations. So that's a repetitive piece of that as well. But right, there's ways more you can do.
I think we have a lot for them to do
Oh,
too,
we do.
right?
Right, the
We
more
have a lot of
active
activities,
kids-
we
yeah,
got,
absolutely.
of all levels.
Just like anything else, just like any other thing we talk about, where kids are active, and they're involved and engaged, they're less likely to be there.
Couple questions. How are kids getting this stuff in the first place? I know they can order the products online, but how are they getting the fluid? Do we know?
Well, and maybe you guys can speak to this just a little bit, but whenever we ask that question, of course, they're not always honest, because we ask, are you getting this
Sure.
from a student yet? And I think out of the number of times that we've asked that, we maybe just had one kid that's, oh yeah, I got it, because they're smart enough to say, I'm not gonna throw somebody else on the bus.
I assume you don't know, I just.
We don't know, and I know, it's nice that that vape store is no longer where it is. I mean, it's, as far as access to it, not that they can necessarily go in and buy.
We're
something.
100% here, you said they're not,
They-
you can't buy it, so
They,
they.
they passed, the guy checked the IDs and.
Can they order it online? Like, can you lie about it and order it online?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yep, it's just the box, you know, how old are you, are you 18 or are you 21, check.
So getting access is pretty simple.
Yes.
You can still,
They have stuff online where it actually looks like it's a toy,
yeah.
and then it gets shipped, so
So your parents don't even know that they're
that
getting
that's
it.
what it is.
And we do have some kids that are buying it from kids that are of age,
Sure.
or young adults that are of age.
And I would say we always ask, right, and we either get a reaction of like, boy, it's another kid and I'm not gonna tell you that name no matter what. Or it's a lot of, right, I'm working at a store at some place and there's somebody who can go legally buy them and it's selling it to me and making a quick buck off of it. I think one of the things that's really prevalent is in those instances where we're looking at THC, it's all commercially packaged stuff, right? That's coming up because an hour from here, it's legal to buy. So there are people, we're fortunate to be right off the interstate, but that's really unfortunate when it comes to, it's easy to drop something off at the All-Stop, and now that's here in our community. So, right, it's all commercial things that are available
I would
legally
say
out
at
in a
least
different state.
Jason, you can tell me if I'm wrong, at least a third of them have been related to THC.
Yeah.
Vape pens in
Yeah.
the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So that's
It's-
increasing.
I would say that's really increasing.
Yeah.
The other question I had is, does the survey ask, just out of curiosity, does the survey ask if these kids come from homes where they're smoking already, like are they second generation smokers, or is this the first time they found it?
I don't think there's a question. I mean, I can look through it. There's a lot of questions, but I can look through it. I don't think so.
I wondered if there was a correlation.
Yeah, I don't think so.
When it comes to regular cigarette smoking, there is a correlation,
Yeah,
for sure, or that's what the literature has shown
sure.
throughout the years. When it comes to e-cigarettes, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And yeah, we don't have that data.
But I think the reality is, right, it's more than a school problem, it's a community problem.
Oh, 100%.
Right? And our school is a microcosm of our community. So you have substance abuse that's happening, and right, I think it's, we see that during youth sports or during events in the school that it's coming in here, and right, most adults also know that nicotine isn't allowed on school grounds. And so, but that addiction is so strong. So I think it's about educating our community as much as it is our kids, because that problem is one and the same.
And there's been a few conversations that I've had with parents of kids that we've caught, they were well aware that they were, like they knew, they probably thought it was a healthier alternative, and I do it, so I'm gonna allow them too. So there's been a few shocking conversations I've had because they were well aware.
It's not healthier though, right? 'Cause that's in the early days,
No.
they kind of marketed it as though it was a solution to this.
Yes, I'm saying they
No,
think
that's
it's not necessarily.
It's a marketing job that they've done very well.
Yep.
So what I like to say is there's a spectrum of harm, right? And if you think of regular cigarettes being all the way over here is the most harmful thing you can put in your body, where vaping and e-cigarettes lie is not all the way over here as the most healthiest thing to put in your body. It's probably right over here in the middle, you know, like, and we don't know where that
So healthier doesn't mean,
being healthy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Or safer doesn't mean safe.
right,
And we don't know because they haven't been around long enough we don't have those studies, we don't have that longitudinal study to show what the long-term
It's
effects
what I
are.
like to tell the students I work with, you know, cigarettes have been around for thousands of years. They've done a lot of research on it, and we know that, you know, if you smoke cigarettes, you could get cancer, and there's all this stuff. We don't know yet about vaping, and I look at them and I say, you know what, in 20 years, maybe, you know, we can talk again and we can see how you're doing physically if you keep doing this. I don't know, you know, we don't know enough about them yet, so that's scary to me. So it should be scary to you.
Is LCAT talking about addiction in general? Like, I just took a 23-year-old friend to a 1-year rehab program yesterday and dropped him off. 23, and he's addicted to everything.
You know, I do Narcan training, so I try to, you know, teach the community. In fact, I have some coming up here, so, I would say yes, we are.
Because that addiction is what, so like, he'll give up one thing, and he's all excited, and then boom, he's in something else. And there's an underlying addiction issue that these kids just, they're talking coping and stuff, they don't know, they gotta get that out too.
What type of, like, for these kids that are, if they're smoking a pack, I mean, I used to be a smoker, so, and I know how addicting nicotine is. Like, if I was told that I had to just quit cold turkey, like, I would have, like, I mean, I had to do the patch, I had to do those to be able to stop, so.
There
do
was,
they give
there
them
was a
those type of-
student, there was a student a few years ago that, based on a doctor's recommendation, they wore a patch in school.
Okay.
And we've
So
had,
they will allow that then?
yep, we've had a couple of students as well, at least one that a doctor wrote a order for nicotine gum to be kept in the office as they worked through. Some of that is, depending on where you're at or what you're caught with, we may, as a part of a behavior contract, recommend alcohol and other drug assessment. So right, in trying to follow up to that, we certainly want to be part of the solution, because that's a really real conversation that we've had with kids of, how much are you vaping, right? If you're vaping, if you're going to the bathroom in the middle of class and you're vaping every passing period, it's going to be really tough to go a whole day. But I think, so we want to try to be a support within that too, and know that there are tools that exist.
Right, well, that's good to hear, because I want some of these.
And for kids that are caught vaping THC, there is an additional program that we didn't really talk about tonight called Time for Life that I teach with students that are caught with, marijuana. It also covers alcohol, so.
Can a parent self-refer to that program?
Sure, sure.
I had an acquaintance who, and I think some parents, if maybe they're not getting caught at school, but they're dealing with some issues at home. Parent things showed up in the mail from Amazon that are THC products. They're like trying to manage it on their own. If they're a part of our district, could they self-refer to you?
Absolutely, no.
Because you serve the community.
Yeah.
I sure do, yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I just thought of that, that's great, okay.
please, Stephanie. Get a hold of me.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, I do want to thank representatives, Nina, Mandy, and Brian for being here tonight, and thank you for coming in. It is videotaped, so we will be priced out. It is